our first question for tonight goes like this. Dear Ajahn, according to the Buddhist tradition, are there some formless realms of existence where beings mentally recite chants or mantras in a continuous way, and is mentally reciting all those beings do?
Well, I'm not fully sure of your question, but generally speaking, what we call the formless realms, these Brahma realms are based on the practice of the arupa jhanas, the formless jhanas. And the whole point is they're formless, so no body, formless means without body, so no body, no mouth, cannot recite. So, doesn't mean to say there's no intelligence there, but there's no sound, no ears to hear, no mouth to recite, no conversations. It's formless. Very subtle objects of mind, like infinite consciousness, infinite space, nothingness, neither perception nor non-perception. So, if that's what you're referring to, then I haven't heard of beings in the formless realms chanting mantras in that way. But then maybe there are, because who knows? In this universe, the variety of experiences. I certainly don't know everything. But the main point is of the formless realms is that they're a bit different from the ordinary Rupa Brahma realms, where they're still based on a form, and the Deva realms, where they still have a form, and human realm, obviously, we have a form. But somebody may have attained their state of the arupa jhanas originally by reciting mantras, words, but then having gone on to develop a more subtle object from that. So that's the answer I can give at the moment. If you were to really be born into a Rupa Brahma realm, a formless realm, you'd be there for a long time. So one of the problems for practitioners, especially around the time of the Buddha, there were some very well-practiced people who could meditate and enter these states of arupa jhana. But because they were doing this and the Buddha hadn't yet become enlightened to teach people the way to Nibbana, they often mistook the formless realms for Nibbana. Because it's the bliss is so complete, it seems like all the mental defilements and wrong views have disappeared from the mind. And if you're reborn in those realms, it's for so long that it can seem like you're there for an eternity. It's not an eternity, there's still a realm that you're born into and die from. It's still an impermanent realm of existence, but that was the delusion some of them had. In this day and age, not many people attain the formless jhanas. We believe a few monks that I know of in Thailand have attained them. So it's certainly possible as a human being to attain the Rupa jhanas and the Arupa jhanas, or formless jhanas. And as a human being, you can still speak, recite mantras and verses if you want. But when you enter the formless jhana, you stop reciting. You're into a much more subtle object of mind.
Sadhu. Next question. For an 8th preceptor, such as a Meiji, is it okay to participate in the temporary seminary program? Will it create karma? Please advise.
It will definitely create karma, because pretty much everything we do is creating karma. Question is, what kind of karma? If you participate in a seminary program, I don't know the details of this program, but if it's something that is encouraging you to keep the precepts, maybe a seminary program sounds like you might keep the 10 precepts, so you stop using money, because 8 precepts people may still handle money. Well, that tends to be good karma, isn't it? If you put all your money away, you stop thinking about it, stop thinking about the price of things and paying bills, you can put all that behind you, and then put more energy into your meditation. That sounds like good karma to me. If you're in a suitable place to practice, you have time to meditate, you're listening to the teachings, you're doing wholesome activities, that's all good karma, isn't it? So sometimes we need programs to help boost our effort in the practice. So if you're a layperson, sometimes you take on 8 precepts, you go on a retreat. Maybe if you're already on 8 precepts, then sometimes you might take on 10 precepts, and you can do that. So you have to look at the results of what you're doing. If it helps you to understand the Dhamma more, put more effort into your meditation, become more disciplined, more mindful of your precepts, and apply yourself more to the practice, that sounds good. If for some reason it's leading to misunderstandings in the practice, wrong views, not peaceful, problems in one way or another, well, that's something you have to reflect on as well. But generally speaking, if it boosts and supports your practice, then it sounds okay.
Sadhu. Next question. Hi Luang Por. I asked a senior monk how to improve my meditation, and he advised me to improve the quality of my heart. I don't fully understand what he meant, as I thought the purpose of meditation is also to improve the quality of the heart. Could Luang Por please advise on this and how to improve the quality of the heart? Thank you, Ajahn.
Well, I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what the teacher was referring to, but you know how it is. We often in Buddhism, we use the term mind and heart interchangeably. And often, like in general language, we say, get to the heart of the matter, or get to the heart, meaning the root of your suffering. And so meditation is giving you techniques of samatha and vipassana, ways of developing mindfulness, ways of reflecting, to help you get to the heart of the matter, which is to root out your wrong views, your greed, anger, delusion. So perhaps when we say get to the heart, improve the heart, we're saying, well, purify the heart of these wrong views and mental defilements which cause suffering. So you have to constantly come back to your heart, because heart as in mind heart, because it's our tendency to always be lost in the imagination, the world of the intellect, the imagination, words, opinions, views, the sensual realm out there, what we like, what we want in life, what we don't like. And we're missing our heart, we're not aware of our heart. Whereas meditation is bringing you back to know your own heart from moment to moment. So you're learning through your day, not just in a meditation session, as it were, but through your day, and be more aware of what's going on in the heart. And as I said, heart and mind we use interchangeably, but often the heart means the center of your mind. It's like here. So like you'll notice, say if you're getting irritated at any point, you'll feel movements and sensations, both physical and mental, in the heart area, in the center of your being. When you have loves and lust and desires, greeds, it stirs here, doesn't it? Your heart is stirred. When you have jealousy, it's there. When you have delusion, it's actually still affecting your heart, but it's very hard to see, because delusion is, it's delusion. But as you meditate, you become much more aware of your heart. You're your mental heart. And the movements of it and the mental defilements are rising out of this point. What happens when you see something that you like, it stirs you, and that stirring starts here. When you see something you don't like, it stirs you in a different way, but it still stirs you in the same place. So often the mental defilements are first observed emerging as feeling, pleasure and pain. Then the words, the thoughts come after that. And often the thoughts and the words and the descriptions and the moods that we fall into, the emotions, take over. But actually a lot of our activity in life is just based around pleasure and pain, the seeking of pleasure and the avoidance of pain and the dislike of pain. So as you practice more mindfulness, often you're coming right back just to the feelings of your heart, the pleasure and the pain. You're seeing how they're conditioning your behavior. But ultimately we're trying to be in touch with this heart so we can remove greed, anger and delusion from it, the conditioning process from it.
Sadhu. Another question. Dear Ajahn, what is the purpose of life, of this life?
Practice for Nibbana, free yourself from suffering while you have the chance, because life is very short. I can tell you that now. I'm 62 years old and it's whizzed by. Every day whizzes by really fast, and we need as much time and opportunity as we can to train this mind, because we're so full of attachments and delusions, we're constantly getting it wrong and we constantly suffer. And very soon we'll be gone from this world and we may have lost our chance, because who knows what happens after you die. So take your chance while you've got it. You've heard the Dhamma, now practice it every day as much as you can. Make it the center of your life. The world will pull you out to everything else. Everything else is demanding your attention. Family, friends, work, society, entertainments, the sensual realm. And you can waste your whole life just following a lot of things that ultimately are not going to liberate your mind from suffering. So just keep coming back to the Dhamma. Make that the center of your life, whether you're a layperson, a monastic, and be aware you don't have very long. Time is running out.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn Kalyano, thank you very much for the Dhamma talk. Can you please explain in detail the process of clinging to the khandhas, khandha by khandha? How can we let go of this clinging for each khandha? Thank you.
The shortcut is develop strong mindfulness. Say with the mindfulness of breathing, for example, more and more. That's still working within the khandhas. So don't be under the misunderstanding that somehow by practicing mindfulness of breathing, you're escaping the khandhas or you're clinging to the khandhas. You're working within the khandhas to let go of the khandhas. But you have no choice to do that. But you need mindfulness. You put a lot of effort into developing mindfulness. And then you develop wisdom by directing your mindfulness back to the khandhas and seeing what are they like. They're impermanent. And that's a question you have to keep investigating. It's not just a belief. It's something you have to know through your experience. Body is changing. Feelings are changing. Perceptions and thoughts are constantly changing. They're impermanent. They're unstable. Keep investigating the khandhas with wisdom, whatever aspect of the khandhas, and they're arising together all the time anyway. And ultimately, the idea is that you clear away all this wrong view and this clinging. So it could just be you work with what gives you most suffering first. So if you're very angry, that's the khandhas at work. There's the body. How does that feel when it's angry? There's the feeling, the painful feeling in the body, and then the mental painful feeling. There's the thought processes associated with it. There's the perceptions that come up that feed this, the thoughts. So you keep thinking of something that makes you angry, you keep suffering. If you can establish mindfulness, you've learned how to bring your mind back to the present moment. Take 3 breaths when you're angry. Already your angry feeling and those negative thoughts will be interrupted and maybe subside enough for you to say, oh, hold on, I'm suffering. This thought, this feeling is impermanent. What is impermanent is not a self, is it? Because it's impermanent. You can maybe start to let go of it. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's the way you've got to go. Is you work with the more extreme kinds of suffering first. All the dissatisfaction and discontent, the disappointments in life, the failed expectations, the anguish, the sadness, all the different emotions that come up, all the physical suffering that prompts us to mentally suffer as well, illness, aging, injuries. Just keep reflecting on all of this. See it as impermanent, as not self, as much as you can. Bring your mind back to the present moment and not getting deluded in all the stories and imaginations that we spin every day. It's a big topic, letting go of the 5 khandhas, so maybe I'll give you it in installments over the next few weeks.
Sarunpo. Next question. Can you please explain how do we observe the khandhas and meditate on them for each khandha separately? Secondly, can you explain again how to see not self in each khandha? Thank you very much.
Well, one thing that always helped me was when the Buddha listed the khandhas, he tended to start with body first, rupa khandha, material form, this body and the material world. When he taught the 4 foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana, he started with the body. So my suggestion is you start with what is more doable, what is simple, effective, doable, where you can gain some quick, clear understanding. So you have to become more and more aware or mindful of your body, the first khandha, and keep asking these questions. Is this body self? If it's a self, I should be able to control it. Can I stop it getting ill? Can I stop it feeling hungry? Can I stop it feeling aches and pains as I sit for a long time? Can I stop it feeling tired? Can I stop it getting older? Can I stop my hair going grey? Can I stop wrinkles coming on my skin? All the things that you don't like about this body, can you really stop them? No, you can't. Therefore, this body is not really you, yours to control, to have. The body is a collection of elements that come from nature, that go according to their own laws, biology and laws of nature. We are more like just the witnesses of it. But we completely forget that. From day to day we keep thinking the body is self. So we have fear and we have desire and we want all kinds of things and expect a lot from this body. Keep investigating that. Start with the body, be mindful of your body, and that will lead into the other khandhas, which are all mental khandhas and are much more subtle and more kind of fast, invisible, hard to keep in touch with. Doesn't mean to say you can't investigate the mental khandhas. You can, of course, but start with the body because it's a very obvious thing. You can feel it, you can see it, you can sense it. So I would recommend your doorway into understanding all the khandhas is the first khandha, the body, the physical form of this body, and then the material world around you as well. Even start with external things, other people's bodies or material things. Nothing lasts. Anything that doesn't last, can you really call that yours? Do you really own something that doesn't last? Just bring that question up in your mind every day. How long do these things last? The car I drive, the house I live in, the people around me, how long will they last? Nothing lasts. Keep questioning the assumptions we have. We assume everything is mine, myself, will last a long time, forever, and it doesn't. So keep questioning those assumptions.
Sadhu. Next question. Dear Lumpur, thank you so much for your teachings, kindness and patience. I would like to know if the Lumpur Liam retreat is going to be live on Zoom.
I would like to know too. Maybe. If we can get the technology together, it may be. If it is, we will probably give you some information ahead of time. As part of our reflection on the five khandhas, everything is impermanent, including Zoom retreats and teachers and events. So at this stage, I will say we will try our best to have some Zoom teaching from Lumpur Liam, but everything is impermanent, so let's see.
Sadhu. Another question. Dear Lumpur, will there be any more retreats this year?
Oh, one at a time, please. Our next retreat is the beginning of March. We'll just focus on that. Our kilesas are so tricky. If I say, oh, we've got retreats all through the year, then people start getting picky. They say, well, I won't go to that one, but I'll go to that one. And, we are too clever by half. Our kilesas are too clever by half. The Buddha said, just live as though today is your last day. Make today the best day by meditating, practicing dana, keeping the precepts, putting all your effort into your Dhamma practice today. And tomorrow we'll talk about that when it arrives.
Sadhu. Another question. Hi Lumpur, may I seek your advice on how do we reduce the attachment to people, such as our parents? Thank you, Lumpur.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, attachment is the source of suffering. So letting go obviously doesn't mean to say you stop having anything to do with your parents. That wouldn't be correct. It's more an attitude or the way you view them. So what did the Buddha say? He said, contemplate everyone I love and like, I will separate from, sooner or later, through death. We all die. If it's your parents, usually they'll die before you, but not always. Maybe I'll die first before my parents, or maybe the parents will die first. But we will definitely separate one day. So bring that reflection up every day. What it does is it modifies or changes your expectations, how you relate to them. If you're angry with your parents, and most people sooner or later will have some anger come up towards their parents, remind yourself they're not going to be here forever. No point holding on to this anger because they're not going to be here forever. You're just making yourself miserable by holding on to this anger. Let it go. Forgive them. Focus more on the good in your parents. Your parents will think and do things differently than you. So don't get too caught up into all these arguments about who's right and wrong, the views and the opinions. Allow them to be who they are. They're older than you and they brought you into the world. If they're ill or elderly, try to care for them, because that's the correct thing to do, isn't it? They cared for you when you were a baby, you can care for them when they're older. You do what you can to give something back to them. Try and get them to practice Dhamma if you can. So non-attachment doesn't mean to say non-involvement or neglect. It just means modifying the way you look at them and what you do. So rather than just, when you cling to someone, then you will get angry with them. You'll fall in love and you'll fall into hatred. You attach and you think too much. You worry too much. All the suffering comes from the attachment. But when you relate to your parents or anyone else as from Dhamma, there'll still be this relationship. You still are living with them, talk to them, care for them, do things with them maybe, but you also know one day they will be gone. You also try to encourage the practice of Dhamma for yourself and then the practice of Dhamma in your parents, the best you can, depending on their karma. And you have to have equanimity based on the understanding of karma. Maybe your parents get ill. You have to accept that and deal with it. If you sit there crying and struggling because your parents are ill or getting old or close to death, you're not helping them, are you? And that's coming from the attachment. When we attach, we're deluded, we cry, we can't accept the truth, we can't function properly because of attachment, love and hate. If we come from Dhamma, it's still sad if your parents are getting elderly or they're going to die soon, they're ill, but we can respond to that with Dhamma. We do the best we can for them, try and help them to be calm in their mind, to be peaceful and look after their material needs. So we try and respond to them and relate to them from Dhamma, from the truth, keeping precepts, being mindful, practicing compassion, rather than just through our attachments, which tends to be views and opinions, preferences, which tends to lead to more conflict, disagreements, moods, I like this, I don't like that, and so on.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question, Dear Luang Por. What is the meaning of skillful means in the practice?
Anything that helps you to remove the causes of suffering from your mind, from your heart. So meditation, watching the breath is a skillful means because it brings you more mindfulness, calms you down, and helps you to have clarity to develop insight. For example, that practicing generosity in daily life is a skillful means because it counters your tendency towards selfishness, greed, possessiveness, stinginess. Keeping the precepts is a skillful means because it brings you restraint, mindfulness of your speech, your actions, stops you doing things that you regret, stops you doing things that hurt other people. But within that, there's also a lot of opportunity for creativity. Skillful means can often mean a certain practice that you've worked out will help you to remove a certain problem or overcome a certain problem. So, say you're somebody who loves your pillow. You are very attached to your pillow. So when you wake up in the morning, you would rather hug your pillow than get up and meditate. So you might make a vow, an adhitthana we call it. I'm going to get up. As soon as I wake up, I will get up. However much I love my pillow, I love the Buddha Dhamma Sangha more. So you make this adhitthana, this vow, and then before you go to bed at night, you say, when I wake up, I'm going to get up and meditate. I'm not going to cling to my pillow. However much I love my pillow, I'm going to get up. That's one example. Or somebody, that would be an example of a skillful means in that situation. Or you have somebody who annoys you at work. Everything they do annoys you. They talk too much, they say the wrong things, they're pushy, they're aggressive, they're ambitious, they're arrogant, all these qualities that make you very angry. Okay, you have to find a way to deal with this. So maybe a skillful means, maybe before you go into work every day, you do a metta meditation, develop the thought of kindness and tolerance towards this person who annoys you. Maybe you have to have some skillful means, rules around your speech. I'm not going to speak to them unless they speak to me. I'm not going to say things that provoke them because they get angry easily and then they take it out on me or other people. I'm just giving you examples here. It just depends on your situation. But to deal with our particular problems in life, our suffering, our attachments, we need to develop skillful means. And that comes through wisdom and experience in the practice, but also asking others. You can ask teachers and Dhamma friends what they do maybe. You know, someone else has you've got a problem, so you go and ask someone else, what did you do to get through this problem? How do you deal with this problem? You know, say you have someone in the office who gives you a lot of suffering. Maybe you have a friend in the office, you can say, how do you deal with them? What do you do? Maybe they got a different perspective that will help you to see things from a different way. So skillful means we get both from our own ideas and then also from other people. And sometimes it's trial and error. You try something, it doesn't work. Or you try something and it does work, and you learn. So skillful means can be precepts, it can be meditation, it can be ways of looking at things, it can be certain practices we take on. You know, often you need to do, skillful means a way, you're looking for ways to adjust your own wrong views and your own attachments. So sometimes you make yourself do something you don't want to do because you know it's good for you, but if you just follow your desires and your moods, you won't do it. So like going back to the, getting up in the morning, if you love clinging to your pillow and you love sleeping in, well, you make yourself get up, use your time better perhaps. It's like that. Sometimes you have to do the opposite of what your mind wants to do.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn, what is the best way to interact with someone who is on their deathbed so that it will be helpful and beneficial to the person in their last stages of their life? Thank you.
Be as peaceful as you can, because it's an emotional time. If someone's dying and they're a loved one, they will possibly be, struggling, and then you will struggle in a different way. You're struggling with your emotions, your attachments, your sadness, but that's not going to help them. You want to stay calm. And you have to accept what's going on. So if you've attached to someone when they were healthy, the way they looked, the way they acted, the way they talked, now they're dying, they're going to be totally different, aren't they? You have to change your perspective, change your expectations. If they're lying on a bed or they're in a situation, they're getting skinnier, they look different, they sound different, or they can't even talk, or they're unconscious, you're going to have to adjust to all these physical changes going on. Because what we tend to do is react. We get sad. Oh, look at her, she's looking so frail or so weak or so skinny. Or, oh, look at him, his breath sounds so awful. Or he can't control himself. When you get older and you're close to death, maybe you can't control yourself, or you smell, all kinds of unpleasant changes can go on in the body. You have to learn to accept them and try and be peaceful with them and just do the best you can to offer some help. Or if there's nothing you can do to help them, just work on yourself to be calm, kind, compassionate for them at the end of their life. And often there's not a lot you need to do other than just be there. So to be with someone who's dying, when there's not a lot you can actually physically do, take some effort and practice. Because we're not very good at just being there, in a room with someone who's dying but not doing much. We get agitated, don't we? We say, what can I do? What can I do? The more agitated we get, the more we think, the more we worry, the more we get caught into our emotions, the worse for us and then the worse for them. It can make the room, if say you're in a room with someone dying, it makes it an unpleasant place to be because we're so agitated. Best thing you can do is stay calm. If there are things you need to do or can do them, but stay calm. And if that just means sitting on a chair, watching them, being with them, fine. We have to learn how to do that. So it's a meditation in itself. You're not sitting there with your eyes closed maybe. You're just sitting there, watching over them, wishing them well. If they can talk, you can talk to them. If they can't talk, you're just doing it more as a mental thing. There's a lot we can do for their benefit at the end. Even if there's nothing physical we can do, we can still mentally help them. But we have to adjust, we have to accept what's going on. And you take it as a learning experience, don't you? If they're dying, you're learning from that. You're going to die too one day, so you might as well learn from this, your loved one who's dying. You say, oh, I'm going to be like that one day. So you're also changing your expectations. You're learning to adjust to the realities of nature, that human beings get old, we get sick, and then we die. So try not to make suffering out of it.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn, the Buddha, the Enlightened One, encouraged his followers to question his teachings rather than follow his teachings blindly. On the other hand, it appears that in the Thai forest tradition, and as you said, there may be few living arahants, therefore most teachers still have to practice towards their own enlightenment themselves. Why is total obedience and not questioning of teachers in this tradition the general approach of training? Do you encourage your students to question your teaching approach?
Yes and no. I'm not sure that you're encouraged to be totally obedient and not questioning. But there's just the practical reality. If you're a beginner, you come into a monastery, you're new, you don't know very much. If you're honest, you have to accept you don't know much. You may have read everything and you think you know a lot, but actually you don't know that much if you haven't practiced. And then you have a teacher who has practiced more than you, longer than you, and they also are representing or following a tradition that they've inherited. We've inherited what we call the Vinaya, the monastic discipline, the meditation techniques, the philosophies and the teachings from the suttas. We've inherited a lot. And then we have the tradition of Ajahn Chah, say in this monastery, we follow Ajahn Chah's teachings the best we can. There's a lot there that it's not just the individual teacher is kind of telling you what to do. They're also just passing on something that they've received and has worked for them. So you have to bear that in mind. If you're the newcomer, you can't just come in and think you know everything. It's more skillful and more useful for you to actually say, maybe I don't know very much, I better watch and learn, be humble, be patient. But over time, sure, questions may come up and you can ask questions and you can question things. But if you're brand new, you also have to act appropriately for someone who's new. If once you become older, you're more experienced, well, then you may be more skilled in seeing what needs to be adjusted or what works, what doesn't, or what needs to be questioned, what doesn't. You may learn that. But in the beginning, maybe it's more appropriate to be accepting of the teacher. Because you chose to go to that teacher, I assume. No one is forced to go and live with a teacher. So if you go and live with a teacher, it's appropriate to follow their teachings. Trouble is, in the West, we don't like authority, we don't like giving up to authority, our kind of modern liberal democratic society, as it were, favors what we call freedom, but really freedom means the freedom to follow desires and attachments, our own desires and attachments. And so that comes up against a tradition like the Buddhist monastic Vinaya training, the meditation training, the teaching system of teaching in a monastery. It's going to come up against it, and there'll be reactions you have in your mind. I want to do this, and then the teacher says do that. And you can say, oh, the teacher's being authoritarian or telling me what to do or being like a dictator or something. But maybe it's just our own desires are complaining. And we haven't seen that because we're new to the practice. So my recommendation is, yes, give up to the teacher, give it time, and learn why are things done the way they are. Why does the teacher say what they say and do what they do? Give it time. Don't rush to judge everything or react to everything. Or if you are reacting, be patient with your reactions. Then you'll get on with your meditation. Ajahn Chah gave very sort of simple guidelines. He said, make yourself one who's easy to look after, meaning, you don't ask for a lot, you don't complain a lot, you don't ask for a lot, you just get on with, they give you an accommodation, they give you a job, they give you a robe, they give you a meditation technique. In the beginning, maybe just accept what you're given and just follow along and work with your mind. If you really want to train this mind, you have to learn how to give up your own views and opinions, your own cravings and attachments. If you're just endlessly battling and say, oh, the system's wrong, the teacher's wrong. I'm not saying teachers aren't ever wrong, they may be, but generally speaking, you're probably more wrong than them. It's just natural, isn't it, if you're new? So don't rush to judge and complain and fight and resist. Learn, you're there to learn rather than to resist. And over time, maybe gradually through experience, you start to see what really is right and wrong and good and bad, and then you can discuss, and maybe you can bring up questions, of course, skillfully. I went to live in Ajahn Chah's monastery and in his Sangha, and never been disappointed. Everything over time made sense why things were done the way they were. Of course, individuals may still have their own craving and attachment, even teachers can. But you have to be tolerant of each other. If you start saying, oh, he's angry or he's greedy or something, well, it may be true, but what about you? Usually what I notice is when people complain and fight and resist the teaching or the training, they're not watching themselves very much. They're just looking outwards. Because that's what we do in the world, isn't it? That's why the world's a mess. Why are monasteries so peaceful? Because people are learning to look at themselves and take responsibility for themselves more than complaining and fighting about other people. There's just a few reflections there. I'm not saying that's a perfect answer either. I'm just giving some reflection.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. Dear Luang Por, could you please explain the experiential difference between Appana Samadhi and jhana? Is it a correct understanding that one is only in jhana when their 5 sense gates fall away? Thank you so much.
If you're asking this question, it may be that you don't really need the answer yet. You need to just go away and practice more. We're aiming to get self-control of this, get control of this mind. To be skilled in letting go of the 5 hindrances. When one does that, then the mental energy tends to gather together. And we call that samadhi. So we call it a unification of mind, or one-pointedness, or stillness, because there's enough mindfulness, steady, continuous mindfulness, that the mind is not distracted anywhere else. We've worked through that, worked how to let go of the distractions, the desires, the sleepiness, the aversions. And now the mind is more under our control in one place, say with the breath merging with its object, knowing its object. And then there'll be times when the mind just gathers together briefly, times when it gathers together and stays in a state of samadhi a bit longer, and then there's times maybe as one becomes more skilled when one can enter a state for a long time at will. The purpose of this developing samadhi is to support the arising of panya, insight, for removing mental defilements from the mind, because when the mind is calm in samadhi, that gives and mindfulness is very continuous. This gives the best basis for seeing a defilement as a defilement of mind. Understanding this is something that causes suffering, this is something to be abandoned. With samadhi, the mind is clear, peaceful, calm, detached, aware, so it can then see what is what, see the truth, say, of talking about the khandhas today, to see the khandhas as impermanent. So when we're not peaceful, you can't really see impermanence because your mind keeps grabbing hold of things. So you don't see the impermanent nature very clearly because you keep running with the impermanent nature of the mind. You keep moving with it. So you need the stillness, the one-pointedness, which starts to reveal the impermanence, the suffering, and the lack of self in our experience. But to do that, you also need to be able to contemplate. You need to be able to see a thought or experience a thought to know it as impermanent. In jhana, you won't have any thoughts arising. You'll only have the object that the mind is fixed on. You don't know anything else in jhana. So you have to contemplate or practice vipassana, for want of a better word, when you come out of jhana, when you come out of samadhi. So in the forest tradition, we tend to use the word appana samadhi, one, to cover the fact that often the depth of samadhi is not guaranteed or always clear to the practitioner. It could be one level of samadhi, one level of jhana, one level of samadhi, or a deeper level. Each time you enter samadhi, if you do enter samadhi, it's not always the same every time. The depth or the level can vary. It's one thing. And then the other thing is there's a depth of samadhi where sometimes we call this upajjhara samadhi, but upajjhara samadhi, having come out of what you might call appana samadhi, one-pointedness, where the mind starts to think again as it re-emerges from this state of stillness. It starts to think again, feel, sense the body again, and mental defilements are being stimulated because as you think, as you see, as you hear, you have pleasure and pain arise, and then you have mental defilements, desires arising, and you can see them as impermanent, as not self, as to be let go of. If you're in jhana, you can only know one object, so you can't practice vipassana. You have to practice when you come out. So generally the forest monks use this appana samadhi term to say, make your mind one-pointed to whatever level you can achieve. Deeper or longer or shorter, deeper or shallower. Doesn't matter. Get to the point where you can one-point your mind, let go of these 5 hindrances, and then as you emerge from that, you can contemplate to abandon your attachments. Most teachers that I've lived with feel that the meditator, whether they're a monastic or a layperson, tend to get too obsessed with levels of samadhi, levels of jhana, and the terms. Sure, we need to read the terms, read the suttas, read the commentaries, get familiar with these terms, but we spend too much time thinking about what level of samadhi do I need, what's this, what's that, to the point where it's an obstruction to the practice. Ajahn Chah used to say, just know whether your mind is peaceful or not, because you can contemplate when you're peaceful. When you're not peaceful, you can't contemplate very well because you keep getting caught up in your moods and your thoughts. So I've always favoured Ajahn Chah's approach, where you're just looking at your mind as it is from moment to moment, and it will be peaceful sometimes and sometimes less peaceful. And if it's not peaceful, why? Bring up that question, investigate what's the source of your disturbance, your suffering. So I didn't fully answer the question, but I gave you some reflections based around the question.